He thought it was just another quiet evening in his neighborhood, a place where he had built his life with pride. But out of nowhere, strangers in fake uniforms pulled up, demanding answers, treating him like a criminal in the very space he called home. They believed they held the power, that their badges could intimidate, that their deception would go unchallenged. But what they didn't know was that the man they picked as their target wasn't ordinary at all. What happened that night would flip the script and reveal a chilling truth about how fragile justice can be. Marcus had built his life on discipline and service. By day, he was the man neighbors waved to as he jogged past, the one who shoveled sidewalks for the elderly couple next door, the father who never missed his daughter's school recitals. To the world, he looked like any hard-working homeowner in a quiet suburban community. But beneath the surface, few knew the depth of his training or the secrets he carried from years protecting his country. That evening, he wasn't working a case. He wasn't chasing fugitives or sitting in a high-security briefing. He was simply pulling into his driveway, ready to relax and enjoy a rare, calm night at home. It should have been ordinary, uneventful, safe. But as Marcus stepped from his car, he felt it. The lingering stare, the uneasy silence where laughter and porch lights usually filled the street. A vehicle idled longer than it should have. The figures inside watched, waiting. His instincts stirred, though nothing seemed obvious yet. What Marcus couldn't know was that shadows had already been cast. Strangers, pretending to wield authority, had chosen him as their target. And in a neighborhood that should have offered comfort, danger was about to arrive dressed in a disguise no one expected. Doors opened with unsettling slowness, and two men stepped out, their uniforms oddly mismatched, badges glinting under the streetlights, radios clipped to belts that looked like costume props. They carried themselves like officers, but something in their stiffness felt wrong, like actors rehearsing roles that didn't quite fit. Marcus stood still, gripping his briefcase, studying their movements with a calm trained over years of field work. Yet beneath that calm simmered a familiar unease, the quiet calculation of someone who understood exactly how quickly these encounters could turn deadly. Their eyes didn't see Marcus, the neighbor, the father, the man who built his life in this neighborhood. They saw only a black man standing in his driveway at night. Their tone dripped with authority they hadn't earned, aggressive, accusatory, insistent he show identification, insisting that he looked out of place. Out of place. In his own yard, the words hit harder than their fake demands, echoing centuries of suspicion cast upon people who belonged just as much as anyone else. Marcus asked what reason they had, but they didn't answer. They moved closer, their false badges reflecting in the dim light. Each step tightened the invisible rope of tension, the kind you could feel without saying a word. They didn't care about truth, they cared about control. The neighbors didn't intervene. Curtains shifted, porch lights clicked off. It was the silence of complicity, a silence Marcus knew well. The kind that left men like him standing alone, against accusation after accusation, no matter how baseless. The impostors demanded he place his hands where they could see them. Their voices rose, overlapping commands meant to unsettle. And for a moment, Marcus felt the split-second danger of deciding whether resistance or compliance would cost him more. He had seen these moments play out for others, so often ending in tragedy, never in justice. Yet this time was different. His pulse sharpened, his instincts balancing between staying hidden in plain sight and revealing who he really was. He wasn't a helpless victim, though they assumed as much. He wasn't powerless, though they wanted him to believe it. What these fake officers couldn't know was that Marcus wasn't simply another man they could intimidate. He had once hunted predators far smarter and far more dangerous than them. He had trained other agents on how to see through lies, disguises, false authority. But before he could reveal who he was, before he could flip their illusion on its head, they took one more step too far. One reached for his holster, not a real weapon, but a convincing replica gleaming under the sodium lights. His partner barked another order, louder this time, as if volume could mask the fraud. And in that instant, Marcus knew this was no empty provocation. This was a test, a trap. And if he miscalculated, even for a second, the price for him could be far greater than just a neighborhood humiliation. The night air grew heavier, pressing in as the standoff deepened. Marcus steadied his breath, readying for what came next, because the moment of reckoning was seconds away. The replica weapon came halfway out of its holster, and for a breathless second, time fractured. Marcus could hear nothing but his own pulse hammering in his ears. He had faced cartel enforcers, domestic extremists, even spies in foreign cities. But never had he felt danger sharpened so personally, so cruelly on his own doorstep. The impostors shouted louder, their voices cracking the night, demanding his compliance with words thick with menace. They expected him to crumble, to shrink, to become another man reduced to silence under fists of false authority. A single wrong move, he knew, and they would justify anything. To them, he wasn't a father in his driveway. He wasn't a neighbor returning from work. He wasn't even a man with a name. He was just a target, defined first and only by his skin. Marcus raised his hands slightly, not in surrender but in steady calculation. Every fiber of his training surged back, control the moment, control the perception, control the outcome. But as he moved, a porch light flicked on down the street, and suddenly a handful of neighbors stood watching. Phones glowed, cameras lifted. The silence of complicity cracked into an audience of reluctant witnesses. The impostors hesitated just long enough for Marcus to step forward. His voice, calm, commanding, sharpened by thousands of hours leading real agents, cut through the chaos. "You're finished." With that, he pulled his wallet and revealed the credentials they never expected. The gold crest gleamed in the light, undeniable, irrefutable. He wasn't just another black man to be intimidated. He was the man the FBI trusted to train others on power, deceit, and control. For the first time, the impostors faltered, their performance unraveling under the glare of truth. But the damage had already been done. His neighbors had seen who they believed and who they doubted, and the line between protection and persecution could never again be mistaken. The question now was chilling. Would exposure and shame be enough to stop them, or would the night demand an even greater price before it ended? The impostors froze, their false authority collapsing in the presence of undeniable truth. With neighbors' phones recording, they had no choice but to retreat, slipping back into their car, their fake badges suddenly meaningless under the weight of exposure. Marcus stood rooted in his driveway, the quiet now louder than any shouting. On the outside, the confrontation had ended. The threat was gone. But inside, something else remained, an imprint that no credentials, no shield of authority could erase. He had survived. But he couldn't ignore the bitter reality. It took an FBI badge to force their retreat. Without it, how different might the ending have been? How many men who looked like him, fathers, sons, neighbors, had not been given the chance to reveal a defense? How many stories had ended in silence, in headlines, in grief? For Marcus, the night was a brutal reminder that no title, no career, no accomplishment could shield him entirely from the suspicion carved into the fabric of society. He carried the authority of one of the most powerful law enforcement agencies in the world, and still, men felt emboldened to strip him of dignity, to make him prove he belonged in his own yard. That truth did not just sting. It opened a wound, shared by generations. And so, while the impostors vanished into the night, the greater question lingered. How many more false authorities, real or imagined, will continue to police black existence in spaces where belonging should never be questioned? Marcus knew his life would move forward, but the weight of that night was not just his burden, it was ours, because at the core, This is not only his story, it is the world's reflection in a mirror we too often look away from. The question is simple, and yet it demands everything. When will we finally stop mistaking skin color for suspicion and start treating humanity as the only badge anyone should need?